Episode 18. Back for a solo one again today without my partner in crime, Chris. But yeah, wanted to quickly jump on and have a bit of a chat about recovery and recovery systems. Some of the best forms of recovery and how to actually, spend time recovering. I'm getting a little bit older, so my recovery is probably the thing that's slowed down the most. It's the thing that I struggle with in terms of backing up training, and I've got back into some longer running, and I'm really struggling at the moment with consistently tight quads. I just cannot get this tightness out of my quads. I'm foam rolling quite a lot. I'm using a sauna to actually get some heat into my body, but it just seems to be quite consistent. Um, what I did want to chat about a little bit is some of the modalities which we're using now and some of the research around them. And I've had this conversation with many people for years, particularly around cold and cold plunge. I've been cold plunging, I think, now for 20 years. I was always, head to the ocean after training, even in the middle of winter. The water temperature was quite cold. The pool at home was cold, and I'd go home and I'd literally grab my hydration, some water or some sort of electrolyte water, and I'd stand in the pool with my beanie on and a long sleeve top just to stay warm. And I know there's probably a little bit better science around it now, and I haven't read any in-depth science recently, but for many years, the science around cold was not that great. We've gone through this whole Wim Hof method, which I think is, more around breathing. But, is there really detailed evidence around cold and cold plunge and how much it works for you? My view on that is that even if it doesn't work, or even if the science doesn't have a lot of evidence, I'm a big believer in doing what feels good, even if it's a placebo effect, even if you get that effect where um, you think it feels good and you think it makes you feel better the next day, then just do it anyway. Chris and I were chatting about this the other week. He's been using a recovery centre, and they seem to be popping up everywhere at the moment. And I'm all for it. I think it's going to be a massive market in the next 10 years. The health and wellness space, not only for athletes, but just for the everyday person. I think it's like sports cars that, Formula One lead the way with technology. And then 5 or 10 years later, some of the technology in those advanced race cars finds its way into production in the everyday motor car. The paddle shift has been around in race cars for a very long time, and then eventually it found its way into luxury sports cars, and then it just made its way down to an everyday car. So, and I think that's like a lot of the recovery modes that they start off with athletes, and then they eventually find their way into the general public. And I think that's a good thing. I think, people using these modalities is a good thing. But, I was saying before that Chris has actually been using a recovery centre up in Queensland, and he's been using the compression boots, you were saying. And again, there's a lot of controversy around compression clothing over the years. As a track runner, we've always worn tights. I recall running onto the football field for training when I was probably 21, because I used to sprint in the summer and play Aussie rules during the winter. And I would have my long tights on, and nobody could believe that I'd actually turn up to training, put a pair of long tights on, put my shorts over the top, and run around the training field. 20 years later, every single person has long tights on. So again, track runners were always wearing long tights when I was young. It was just a common thing. You could hardly find them in Australia, to be honest. I bought mine in Spain traveling one year. But it was interesting. Everyone at training couldn't believe I was just this idiot running around in these long tights in the middle of winter. And now it's common practice. But so there's been a lot of controversy around compression clothing. Does it really work? My personal opinion is it doesn't. I don't think I've ever had or ever felt any better wearing, any sort of compression wear. However, it feels good, to wear something tight on your legs when you're running. It feels good. The compression socks that you fly with, I'm sure they have a benefit, but how tight they are compared to a pair of, compression clothing is ridiculous. You couldn't actually train in a pair of, compression tights or a compression top that is as tight as those flight socks. But my point is that, if it makes you feel good and you believe that you're recovering more from it, then do it anyway. And Chris was saying the same thing about the recovery boots, that he goes to this center, at the moment, or particularly if he's in racing mode, once a week, and he spends a half an hour in these recovery boots, sitting in a massage chair, I believe. And he said he can't believe the way he feels, when you get out of it. And even if the science isn't there, and even if it's not doing that much, I think, it's just a benefit mentally that okay, I've done this recovery session and tomorrow I'm going to run better. So I think all these modalities are a good thing. And even if there's only a 1% increase or 1% improvement, if you're doing lots of those little things and they're all adding up, then I think it's worthwhile. And as I was saying earlier, that as I've got older, recovery by far is the thing that I'm struggling with the most. I've started some distance running again. I've run 10Ks a couple of times, and for those folks out there that go out for a casual 10K run, I know you're probably thinking how crazy that is at the moment, that I can only run 10Ks, but that's where I'm at, coming off a sprint background and then not spending any time running for many years, and then living in the mountains and basically only skiing for the last 3 or 4 years and a little bit of cycling. But I've run 2 10K runs. I hadn't run 10Ks since I was about 23, I think. So for me to run 2 10K runs in the last 5 weeks has been nice, but it does leave me sore for days. So I am trying to focus more on my recovery, and I think that's become probably, more important than my actual training at the moment. And again, I really admire Chris and for some of the work that he puts in. And he said to me the other week, for every 1 hour of training he does now during the week, he does 1 hour of recovery work. And for him, that is going to the gym, sitting in the hot tub to get really warm, and then doing some light stretching and so mobility work. And then he will jump on an exercise bike for 15 to 20 minutes and just turn his legs over. And then he'll just go through some lightweight training and a lot of band work. He really focuses on his hip flexors and his hamstrings, and his calves as a track athlete. So, yeah, I just wanted to, talk a little bit about what we can do to assist with this recovery. And I think it can't be emphasized enough. It's all these little things that just matter the most. And I think prioritizing your sleep, prioritizing your fluid intake, prioritizing your, stretching and mobility. And the other thing I have started to do a little bit more is more static stretching. I have allowed my body to become so stiff over the years. And I have to say, on my lower back already, I've just been sitting in that cross-legged position and leaning forward, for an extended period of time, 2 minutes at a time. And I've gone from not being able to reach forward to get my elbows on the floor to getting my elbows on the floor in probably inside a week. So, yeah, it's a huge part of training. And even if you're young and you can bounce back, I think the more you can prioritize it, the more you can focus on it, the better you will be. But definitely as you start to age, it becomes bigger and bigger. And I'm like all athletes that I get a bit obsessed with improvement all the time, and I reluctantly won't take days off, but I have to force myself some days to say, okay, today I'm just so sore, and going out and trying to do something else. I can be that hero and actually push through it. I'm sure I'll be fine. But is it the right thing to do? Maybe I just need that one extra day, sit in the sauna, come out of the sauna and sit on the floor and stretch, roll, get a massage, and all those other things. I would love some feedback. The one thing I'm still not sure about and I don't own is a massage gun. I think it feels good. I've used one before, but it's not something I've gone and purchased. I just don't know really how good they are, but maybe it's something that I should go and try. If you can put feedback, I'm trying to actually use Spotify to use feedback now, but if you've got any comments around a massage gun, please feel free to leave them. Anyway, I'm not going to make it a long one. I just wanted to touch base around some of those things and express some of my thoughts on, recovery, how to use it. But the most important thing, I think, if you feel good and it's something that mentally makes you feel better, even if it has no physical benefit or minimal physical benefit, then I think you should do it anyway. Anyway, happy training and Have a great week. And until next time, bye for now.